On a frigid midnight, with my heart pounding so loud I was certain I'd give myself away, I pried open a rotten basement window, clutching nothing but my backpack and the $280 I'd saved from tutoring, because at 13, I'd finally understood that when the person meant to protect you becomes your greatest threat, the only way out is to crawl through the smallest crack in a concrete wall and never look back. I escaped my abusive stepfather through a basement window at 13. But the judge at my custody hearing was his college roommate. He sent me back until his own daughter secretly recorded him taking bribes for custody cases and federal marshals arrested him during his weekly poker game. So I finally got justice. My stepfather received 15 years, and I now help other kids document their abuse in the school library. I ran away when I was 13 and never looked back. My stepfather's punishment room was the basement storage area with concrete floors, no heat, and that musty smell of old boxes. That night, I'd broken his rule about doing homework. After 9 p.m., I had a chemistry test the next day. I thought I was being careful. My desk lamp was almost off, when I felt his hand grab my shoulder. "What part of lights out at 9 don't you understand?" His voice was quiet. That's what always scared me most. He never raised his voice. "I have a chemistry test," I whispered, already knowing it wouldn't matter. 3 days, no food, he said, squeezing my shoulder until I winced. "Maybe, then you'll learn to manage your time better." He walked me to the basement and made me watch as he took my textbook and ripped out pages one by one. "Clean that up tomorrow," he said, pushing me down the stairs and locking the door. This wasn't new. What was new was the small window I'd been working on for weeks. I'd been loosening the screws since the day he threw my mom down these same stairs. She still told the neighbors she tripped. I knew then that nobody was going to help us. I waited until 3 a.m., listening for his breathing machine. Mom would be knocked out on her anxiety meds by then, her own way of coping. I pushed the window frame and felt it give way. Every creak made my heart pound. It was barely wide enough for my body, but I pushed through, holding only my school backpack. Inside were clothes, my birth certificate, I'd taken it from Mom's filing cabinet, and the $280 I'd saved from tutoring kids at the library. Mrs. Tanaka paid me cash and never mentioned the bruises on my arms. I didn't go to any classmate's house. It would have been too obvious. Instead, I went to school and found the broken gate behind the gym. I crawled into the equipment shed. I'd hidden a sleeping bag there the week before, just in case. For 2 weeks, I lived like this, arriving before the janitors, washing up in the athletic locker room, attending all my classes, tutoring more kids, finding places to sleep. I kept my grades perfect. I stayed invisible. That's the thing about being the smart, quiet kid. Teachers assume you're fine as long as your homework's turned in. Then came the Amber Alert, my face on everyone's phones during English class. I kept my head down, pretending to read my novel. Missing child, possible abduction. That night, my stepfather was on the local news with his arm around my mother, who looked empty, standing next to him. "Please," he said, his voice breaking. "Perfectly. Please bring our son home. We just want him safe." The same man who dislocated my shoulder while teaching me proper form in Little League. The same man who made our dog sleep outside in winter until it froze to death. The next day was worse. Kids studied their phones, then scanned faces in the hallway. I wore my hoodie up, ate lunch in the bathroom, and kept walking. The librarian, Mrs. Nakamura, caught me dozing in the biography section during my study period. I was tucked behind tall shelves, but she was reshelving books. I saw it in her face. When she recognized me, she didn't say anything, just turned around. I started packing up, ready to run, but she came back. "Kenji," she said softly, "come to my office, please." I followed her, already planning which exit to use. She closed the door and lowered the blinds. "Everyone's looking for you," she said gently. I nodded. "Are you safe at home?" she asked, studying my face. I almost lied, but then I slowly rolled up my sleeves and showed her the round scars on my forearms from the cigarette burns. His focus lessons. I pulled up my shirt to reveal the belt marks across my back. "There's more," I said quietly. "But you understand." She didn't call my parents. She called social services, then let me stay in her office until they arrived. She gave me her lunch, rice balls and orange slices, the first real meal I'd had in days. The social workers took pictures, asked questions, recorded everything. For once, adults believed me. The detective told me they found my blood on the basement walls from my failed escape attempts. They found the makeshift toilet bucket in the corner, my mother's medical records showing dozens of suspicious injuries. Everything. My stepdad was arrested that same day. Mrs. Nakamura held my hand as we watched them lead him away in handcuffs. The prosecutor called it an open and shut case, 20 years minimum. The trial date came fast. Mrs. Nakamura sat behind me, in the courtroom. My foster parents were there too. Then the judge walked in. My blood turned to ice. I knew that face. It was in every photo on my stepfather's office wall. The judge looked directly at me and smiled. After reviewing the evidence, he began, "I'm ordering immediate family reunification." My legs wouldn't move. The courtroom walls seemed to close in as those words echoed in my head. Family reunification. The judge's smile never wavered as he continued reading, but all I could hear was static. Mrs. Nakamura shot to her feet behind me, her voice cutting through the fog as she shouted at the judge, demanding he recuse himself. The bailiff moved toward her immediately, hand already reaching for her arm. The prosecutor scrambled through his paperwork, papers flying everywhere, until he pulled out a conflict of interest form. Blank. The judge leaned back, calm. He explained there was no legal obligation to recuse himself from cases involving friends. Of friends, just casual acquaintances. Nothing improper. I caught movement in my peripheral vision. My stepfather adjusted his tie, the corner of his mouth twitching upward. The courtroom camera probably caught it, but nobody else seemed to notice. My foster mom grabbed my hand under the table, whispering that we would appeal, but the child services officer was already approaching with a thick folder of transition. Paperwork. Everything prepared in advance. Mrs. Nakamura tried to block the aisle, demanding to see the judge in chambers. Security moved in. The judge called for order as my stepfather stood, playing the relieved father perfectly. His eyes never left mine. I had seconds to decide, to make a scene and prove I was the unstable runaway they claimed, or comply peacefully and hope for another chance. The prosecutor caught my eye from across the room, his lips forming two words. "I'm sorry." I chose compliance. As security escorted Mrs. Nakamura back, I leaned close to my foster parents and whispered that they should check my library cubby. They looked confused but nodded. They didn't understand yet, but they would. The bathroom situation came next. I needed guardian permission to use it, but my foster parents were no longer legal guardians. The officer explained I would need my stepfather's permission now. He savored every second of that power, making me wait while he finished signing papers. Finally, he nodded and stood to escort me himself. His hand landed on my shoulder in the hallway, fingers finding the exact pressure points he always favored. In the bathroom, he straightened my collar with deliberate care, the kind that never left marks anyone could photograph. His words were soft as he mentioned how things would be just like old times. Walking back to the courtroom, I spotted a familiar face near the doors. The reporter from our school newspaper, the quiet kid who always ate lunch alone. Our eyes met, and I mouthed a single word. Help. Recognition flashed across his face before he looked away. The child services officer continued reading the transition requirements. She mentioned the new house my stepfather had purchased, sale of our old home already in progress, and noted the finished basement, pre-soundproofed for a music room. My stomach turned to lead. The drive to the new house was in my stepfather's car. Classical music filled the silence. Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, the same piece he'd played during punishment nights, loud enough to drown out any screams. My hands stayed folded in my lap, perfectly still. The new house looked normal from the outside, suburban safe. Inside, he gave me a tour with obvious pride. Cameras in every corner, for my safety, after my dangerous runaway attempt. He showed me the monitoring app on his phone. Every room appeared in a neat grid of video feeds. My old room had been recreated with disturbing accuracy. Same furniture, same posters, same everything. Except the desk now faced away from the window and a digital timer sat on top, counting down study hour. he explained. Study materials limited to 1 hour before mandatory lights out. The door had an automatic lock set for 9 p.m. sharp. A library book fell from my backpack as I set it down. Mrs. Nakamura's business card tumbled out from side between the pages. Emergency contact information printed neatly below her name. My stepfather picked it up, reading it slowly, then pocketed it. My reintegration rules, he said. No outside contact during the adjustment period. I repeated the number in my head until it stuck. My mother arrived an hour later. Mrs. Nakamura's sudden shift from quiet observer to fierce protector made me wonder what she'd seen before in her years as a librarian. The way she called social services immediately suggested she knew something about these situations beyond just protocol. The treatment facility van pulled away as I entered the house. My mother's movements were sluggish, uncoordinated. Despite the summer heat, she wore long sleeves, a fresh bandage, peeked from her left cuff. Her pupils were dilated, unfocused. She hugged me in the doorway, whispering urgently, her breath carrying the sharp chemical smell of new medication. Stronger doses than before. Whatever they'd given her at the facility had broken something inside her. Dinner was already set. When we entered the dining room, 3-place settings arranged perfectly. My stepfather insisted on a toast, to our family being whole again, and my mother mouthed along, matching his words perfectly. She'd heard this speech before. The phone rang during dessert, the school principal calling about my reintegration plan. My stepfather took the call in the kitchen, but spoke loud enough for us to hear. I'll drive her to and from school. No after-school activities, no tutoring, not until trust is rebuilt. The principal agreed. I helped clear the table, palming my mother's anxiety medication bottle when she wasn't looking. The label showed a new psychiatrist, Dr. Harrison, I recognized from the country club directory in my stepfather's office. Another friend, another connection. My foster parents called after dinner. My stepfather answered on the first ring. Voice warm. She's adjusting well, he told them. Just needs space to process. I sat on the stairs, watching him pace the living room with my phone. Every word was perfectly crafted. That night, I tested the windows in my room. The bathroom window had been painted shut, multiple coats ensuring it would never open. Every other window had new locks requiring a key. I watched my stepfather add that key to the chain he wore around his neck. When he caught me examining the lock, he smiled. Learned your lesson, he said. No more midnight escapes. The next morning brought news about the school newspaper. The reporter from the courthouse had written an article about the trial, but the editor killed it, citing legal concerns after a phone call from the judge's office. The reporter's social media posts disappeared within hours. I mapped every inch of the new house over those first days. Every door, every window, every possible exit. The basement door had an electronic lock. The garage opener was removed from my mother's car. Even the fence gates had new padlocks. It was a sophisticated trap designed to look like a normal family home. The first morning at school arrived with military precision. My stepfather walked me through the entrance, hand firm on my shoulder as he spoke with the security guard. The same guard who used to wave at me. Now he studied my face carefully, nodding as my stepfather explained about my flight risk status. I watched him make notes, adding my name to some kind of watch list. The hallways felt different with every eye tracking my movements. Teachers who never noticed me before now watched from doorways. My stepfather had made sure everyone knew about the runaway incident. He painted himself as the concerned parent, dealing with a troubled teen. At my locker, I found a folded piece of paper tucked into the ventilation slot. My hands trembled as I unfolded it, making sure nobody watched. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the message was clear. Your story matters. Teacher Alliance, with a simple drawing of a book, the same symbol Mrs. Nakamura used. I crumpled the note and shoved it deep into my pocket. The cameras, my stepfather mentioned, weren't just at home. I spotted new security cameras in the hallways, their red lights blinking steadily. Everything was being watched now. In chemistry class, the teacher announced new lab partnerships. I was paired with Melissa Chen, a quiet girl I'd never talked to before. She looked up at me with curious eyes and said her father thought I was lucky to have a second chance. Her dad, the judge, The realization hit me like cold water. I forced a smile and nodded, playing the grateful, reformed runaway. Melissa seemed nice, unaware of the weight her last name carried. During our lab work, she chatted about normal things: her piano recital, her family trip, her father's poker games. She mentioned custody cases in the pot, joking about my stepfather's lucky streak. I froze as I measured chemicals. Lunchtime meant eating in the cafeteria under supervision. No more hiding in the bathroom. I sat at an assigned table, picked at my food, and tried to ignore the whispers. After school, I waited by the entrance for my stepfather. A woman approached. Mrs. Tanaka, one of the library volunteers. She walked past without acknowledging me directly, but I heard her say into her phone that her husband didn't want any association with controversy, and that their tutoring arrangement had to end. Another door closing. The ride home was silent, except for classical music. At the house, I found my mother in the kitchen staring blankly at the wall. An appointment card sat on the counter. Family reconciliation specialist, with daily sessions now. The medication bottles lined up beside it told their own story, triple the normal dosage. I spent the evening at my desk, the timer counting down my study hour. The work was easy, but my mind wandered. When the timer hit 0, the door lock clicked. Shut, 9 p.m. exactly. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling camera's red light, and tried to plan. The next day in computer class, I accessed my cloud storage. Hidden among old projects was a video file labeled "just in case." I downloaded it quickly to a flash drive hidden in my calculator case. The file showed my mother, bruised and swollen, documenting her injuries and talking directly to the camera, real evidence. I deleted the browser history and returned to my assignment, heart racing. The guidance counselor pulled me from class for mandatory adjustment disorder sessions. I knew her notes would go to family court, so I played stable, grateful for the second chance, talking about how much better things were, all while fresh bruises throbbed under my clothes. My stepfather knew exactly where to hurt without leaving. Visible evidence. Back in chemistry, Melissa mentioned her dad's poker game again. The way she talked about it gave me ideas. Information was power. I started paying attention to her stories, who attended, what they discussed, how her father ran his courthouse. During our next lab, I let my sleeve ride up just enough to show fresh purple bruises on my forearm. Melissa's eyes widened, but she stopped herself from speaking. We finished in silence. That evening, my stepfather announced a random safety check. He went through my backpack methodically, checking every pocket, every folder. He found the calculator and examined it carefully, but the flash drive was already in my shoe, always 3 moves ahead. The next morning, Mrs. Nakamura wasn't at school. Word spread that she'd been barred from school property after the courthouse incident. Another ally gone. But something else happened. The substitute librarian, Ms. Z. Chen, used a subtle hand gesture I recognized from Mrs. Nakamura, a signal to identify safe people. I tested it while returning a book, and Ms. Chen's eyes flickered with recognition. She mentioned bibliographies were important for research. The emphasis on certain syllables confirmed it. She was part of the teacher protection network. My mother's medication made her sleep 16 hours a day. I found her prescription bottles and calculated the dosage, triple the normal amount, enough to keep her docile. The perfect witness. Who couldn't testify? I faced a choice: document the over-medication or secretly reduce her doses to help her. Saving her might sacrifice my freedom, but watching her fade away was killing something inside me. I chose her care. I removed pills, hid extras, and created a pattern that looked normal. She seemed more alert at dinner. My stepfather noticed immediately and scheduled an emergency appointment with Dr. Harrison. The cycle would restart unless I found another way. I suggested a family dinner at a restaurant for her birthday, a public setting, potential witnesses. My stepfather agreed, eager to display our perfect family. He chose an upscale place where he knew people. I palmed a note I'd written, "Call Mrs. Nakamura." When our waitress came by, I slipped her the note. She nodded, understanding. During dinner, the judge's wife entered for her own birthday. She insisted we join tables. Our happy family merged with theirs. Melissa sat across from me, glancing at my wrists. During dessert, she mentioned seeing bruises in lab class. Her father and my stepfather exchanged loaded looks. The threat was clear. Melissa didn't come to school the next day. Family emergency, the teacher said. I knew better. She'd been silenced. When she returned a week later, she looked exhausted. In class, she slid me her notebook with certain elements circled in a pattern that spelled out, "Help me too." The realization hit hard. She was trapped by her own family's power. We were parallel victims in connected cages. Over the following days, I pieced together more information. My stepfather worked at the judge's brother's construction company. Our entire system compromised. One morning, I found a business card in my locker. No name, just a phone number, and Federal Building Room 342. The handwriting looked familiar from court documents. The prosecutor hadn't given up. But I was too closely watched to act. My foster father had a heart attack. The stress took its toll. The church organized meal trains while he recovered. Another person destroyed by proximity to my situation. During supervised internet time, I posted a cryptic message on social media, a photo of my bedroom window locks with the caption, "Some prisons have windows." It was deleted within hours, but not before screenshots were taken. Chemistry lab became my only refuge. During research time, I posted a similar message on the school forum with a photo attached. Evidence building, even if slowly. An emergency. Custody review was scheduled, but the replacement judge was the original judge's golf partner. The entire local system was compromised. My stepfather prepared for the hearing with confidence. 3 days of escalating control and desperate moves. But something had shifted. Federal prosecutors were involved now, and media attention was growing. The net was closing. Then came the breakthrough. During one of my mother's brief, lucid moments, I convinced her she needed tampons from the store where Mrs. Nakamura shopped. It was a long shot, but desperation made me creative. I slipped a flash drive into my mother's tampon box. Too obvious a place for my stepfather to search. That evening, federal marshals surrounded the judge's house during his weekly poker game. Arrests were made for judicial corruption. My stepfather realized what was coming and burned documents in the fireplace, maintaining his concerned father act even as his world crumbled. A new judge, unconnected locally and known for child advocacy, was appointed. An emergency hearing was scheduled. My stepfather had 3 days to prepare. His paranoid control reached new heights. New locks, daily shoe searches, even examining my clothes seams with a flashlight. Then everything exploded in court. Federal prosecutors, child advocates, media reps. My small family matter had become something larger. My mother testified clearly. Medical records and x-rays spoke for themselves. The court reporter described my stepfather's wrist-grabbing and refused recusal by the original judge. Melissa's video deposition detailed her own father's corruption. Even the defense couldn't spin it. I testified last, rolling up my sleeves to show scars and bruises. When I mentioned the soundproofed basement, my stepfather lost control and had to be restrained. The judge's decision was swift. Immediate removal from his custody, criminal charges recommended. Temporary custody to my mother under supervision. My foster parents offered ongoing support. Family by choice. 6 months later, I sat in Mrs. Nakamura's library. My grades had recovered, my bruises faded. My mother attended therapy 3 times a week and hadn't missed a session. My stepfather's trial ended with a 15-year sentence. Other quiet kids began approaching me at lunch. I taught them chemistry, but really I taught them to document everything, find their Mrs. Nakamura's, and remember that escape often takes multiple attempts. I keep a calculator with a hidden compartment, not for evidence anymore, but for emergency numbers shared with kids who flinch too easily. Kids who wear long sleeves in summer, who know that monsters can wear suits and speak softly. The system failed me repeatedly, but people didn't. Mrs. Nakamura, the court reporter, even Melissa, who risked everything for a stranger. They proved justice is possible when someone believes you, and sometimes that person has to be yourself, refusing to give up, refusing to disappear, refusing to let them win. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Dinner's ready. I packed up my books and headed home to a house with windows that opened. To a family healing slowly but surely. to a life I'd fought to claim. The 13-year-old who crawled through a basement window feels like a different person, but I carry him with me, a reminder that survival is just the beginning, and true victory comes from helping others find their own windows to crawl through. I hope you have a wonderful day filled with much simpler challenges than basement windows and hidden flash drives.